Prince George's birth on the 22nd of July 2013 was a global event.
As a royal household, we knew how to put big events on, but nothing could have prepared us for this.
His arrival marked a new era for the royal family, with a focus on a more modern upbringing for the future king.
Just like many new parents, here goes the shuffle with the car seat.
I think people will be struck by how regular and ordinary their life is as a family.
We'll discover the impact on the young prince of his maternal grandparents.
It is the Middleton influence which has been more significant in how George is being raised as a son and as a future monarch.
And how the memory of Princess Diana is still at the heart of their family.
I think William is giving his children the privacy that Diana craved.
Princess and her two sons emerged from their hotel to be greeted by dozens of reporters and photographers.
And the shocking news.
The fear that William had was that he suddenly might be propelled into the top job. And then what about George?
George is going to have to do his bit to bring the monarchy into the 21st century. He doesn't know it yet, he's only 11 years old, but a lot of that's going to fall on his shoulders.
This is the story behind the making of a modern monarch, Prince George, the next generation of royals. It's May 2023, and for the first time in 70 years, Britain welcomes a new monarch. Taking part in this centuries-old tradition is Prince George, the King's eldest grandchild.
Prince George was front and centre of this historic global occasion.
The royal family is all about dynasty, it's all about succession, it's all about handing down for the next generations.
And he's getting a first-class masterclass, if you like, in how to be a modern-day monarch.
And how to bring up an heir to the throne is going through an evolution. Being relatable is gaining importance.
He's going to have that experience that enables him to connect with ordinary people, because that is going to be expected of him as a modern monarch. He's quite a thespian. I think he takes after his grandfather, King Charles, in that respect. And he's also a very talented footballer. He plays for his school. He's very sporty. And, of course, that's something he's also inherited from his mother.
And we got a rare insight into Prince George's early interest in the natural world when William and Kate shared a video clip on social media.
George, as most children, have an interest in animals and conservation probably anyway. But I think, apart from anything else, it was just a sweet moment to see this little kiddie talking to Sir David Attenborough.
Hello, David Attenborough. What animal do you think will become extinct next?
Well, let's hope there won't be any, because there are lots of things we can do when animals are reduced to and danger of extinction. We can protect them.
It was just quite special, and yeah, maybe it does mark the start of an interest in conservation matters. I think if I know anything of William and Kate, though, they'll allow George to find his own route.
Right from his birth, William and Kate were keen to bring George up in their own unique way. But the public and press expectations on the new heir began before he was even born.
Given that there has been such huge and global interest in William and Catherine from the outset, they knew that as soon as they had a child, you know, the interest was going to just go through the roof, and it did.
There's nothing quite like a royal birth, and this was the first big royal birth in 30 years.
But the timing of a future monarch's arrival is no easier to predict than any other baby.
Even the Queen was beginning to get a bit frustrated and remarking that it was taking rather a long time.
Mid-afternoon, still no news.
It seems the whole world is watching and waiting.
We just had no idea that within 2 or 3 days of us putting these pens up, they'd be full to bursting point, and that people would be reserving their place.
I remember down at the Lindo Wing in Paddington, it was July, so it was very hot, and it was called the Great Kate Wait. We We were all there bagsing our positions outside the Lindo wing for what seemed like weeks.
As a royal household, we knew how to put big events on. It's what we did, but nothing could have prepared us for this.
The crowds were massive. What you see on the TV is really just half of it. This is a quiet back street in London, and it was absolutely rammed. It was the biggest press pen I will ever be in, waiting for George to come out.
And on the 22nd of July 2013 came the moment the world had been waiting for, the birth of a future king. But in true family fashion, it was George's immediate relatives who were told first.
I remember there was a pause between when the baby was born and when we were going to tell the world. And the couple wanted to have just a few hours where this moment, this news, was their own. It was their precious moment.
The Queen and Prince Philip were told by Prince William almost immediately after the birth.
And after the royal family had been told, it was time to share the happy news with the rest of the world.
So we had long discussions at the palace about whether we should maintain this old tradition of, for example, putting the birth on an easel in the forecourt of Buckingham Palace. And in the end, we decided that because the monarchy is still a little bit about theatre and theatrics and drama, a soap opera, we wanted to keep some of those old-fashioned ideas.
Ed Perkins, a member of the royal household, walked from the hospital carrying the document that confirmed the birth of a future king.
Everything gone well, Ed?
His quick thumbs up to the driver, an indication all was well and celebrations could begin.
I remember being pushed out of the front door of the hospital and there were 200 people opposite and shouting your name. So it was a really historic moment.
From St Mary's Hospital to the palace, tradition now back on track.
I was the Queen's press secretary at the time of Prince George's birth. So it was my huge excitement and privilege to chain the announcement on the railings of Buckingham Palace in front of, oh my golly, huge crowds and many, many media.
Across the world, jubilant reporters shared the long-awaited news with an ecstatic public.
Just the last few seconds, the announcement that the British royal family has a new member, a prince.
The waiting is over. It's a boy, a future king, 8 pounds and 6 ounces.
The United Kingdom has a new royal heir, His Royal Highness the Prince of Cambridge.
It's a very public moment. It's also the moment where you kind of realise this baby is born to extraordinary things. And here it starts.
Year 2013, we welcome a future king.
The difference, of course, is that William was much more of a hands-on father in an open-neck shirt, looking much more like your regular dad.
When you look at the clothes that she was wearing, that blue and white polka dot dress, very much paying tribute to Diana, who'd stepped out in the same dress and sort of continuing this sense of history and heritage. Some people may think, well, it's just clothes, you're just choosing an outfit, but there is so much more to it than that.
So you have this idea of bringing Diana along as part of the journey with the arrival of the children.
This was a real moment when the future king and queen are presenting a future king. It's very, very significant and a very important moment for a dynasty like the House of Windsor.
But the new prince wouldn't be seen in public for another 9 months, when he proved a big hit on his first overseas tour.
I think William and Kate benefited hugely from having George with them on that trip.
There was Prince George mania. Prince George was dubbed the Republican Slayer for very good reason.
It's July 2013, and the nation has a new king in waiting. But there's an early sign of changing times when it's not the royal family who meet him first.
The Middletons were the first visitors at the hospital. I think they spent close to an hour on that first visit.
He's absolutely beautiful. They're both doing really well, and we're so thrilled.
How are the
When Catherine accepted William's marriage proposal, and she made it very clear that, of course, she loved him, she wanted to spend the rest of her life with him, she would give up everything that becoming a royal bride entails in terms of sacrifice, but the one thing she wasn't willing to give up on was having her family being a close part of her life, and William assured her that that wouldn't happen.
William has loved going to the Middletons for Sunday roast and having a normal weekend in Berkshire with his in-laws as they became.
I think he's taken all the best elements of what the Middletons gave their children and melded them with what he remembers of his own upbringing.
But the whole family was rocked when Kate was diagnosed with cancer.
And we saw that charming video, a really emotional video actually, that the Princess of Wales released while she was undergoing her treatment for cancer.
And this deeply personal film shows just how important Kate's family support is.
This time has above all reminded William and me to reflect and be grateful for the simple yet important things in life, which so many of us often take for granted, of simply loving and being loved.
And you've got the Middletons round the table playing card games with all the grandchildren.
I think most people haven't been aware of just how involved the Middletons are, possibly until they saw that video. There were no members of the royal family in that film. It was the Waleses and it was Carol and Michael.
You can see that William and Catherine want to raise the children their way. They don't want to be dictated to or follow royal protocol.
In fact, the Cambridges didn't appoint a nanny for quite some time. And when they went back to Kensington Palace for that first day and night, George was clearly rattled by the heat and crying, and the Queen just looked at them like they were completely mad to be in this situation with no royal nanny. It was a moment, I think, where it was William and Catherine just saying, well, yes, this is a bit different, but this is how we're going to do things.
Instead of hiring in extra help, they opted for an extended stay with Kate's family.
Kate was very keen to get to her parents' home as soon as she decently could after leaving hospital.
That really set a precedent and showed just how important Carol and Michael were from the very, very first days.
It proves how close she is to her family, but it's like most normal couples. The daughter who's just had the baby wants to be with her parents.
And during that stay, Michael Middleton captured such a natural, relaxed image in a family snap that it was released as one of the official photos to mark George's birth.
It's a wonderful photograph of baby George with Kate and William and the dog Lupo, the spaniel.
And while the Middletons were spending quality time with their new grandson, one person was feeling left out.
I felt that Charles let slip that he hadn't seen a great deal of his baby grandson.
He wouldn't be human if his nose wasn't a little bit put out of joint.
Congratulations. Very much. Congratulations. Bring it all out.
Once again, duty interfered with his joy of being a parent, or in this case, a grandparent.
He did rather sweetly seek some advice from a women's institute he was visiting when he asked if they got any tips on being a grandparent. And they all said that famously well-known cliche about, love them to bits, but then hand them back at the end of the day, which is the great privilege of being a grandparent.
When it came to George's christening, William and Kate once again chose to break convention.
Normally, a royal christening for the heir to the throne would take place at Buckingham Palace. That's where Prince William was famously christened in 1982.
George's christening was at St James's Palace, and that was a personal decision by William and Kate because it's very beautiful, it's very intimate chapel there.
I think that was an opportunity for the couple to sort of allow the media some access, but then of course to say, right, well, when we go home, we want to be left alone.
Even William and Kate's choice of godparents reflected their modern take on shaping George's childhood.
In the past, godparents were nearly always chosen from members of various royal families.
There's Jamie Lowther Pinkerton, who's very important. He was William's right-hand man for many years.
One of them was Julia Samuel, who's a psychotherapist, and she was a great, great friend of the Princess of Wales. So I think that was a nod to Diana.
In fact, the only royal connection among the godparents was Zara, and she doesn't have a title.
It's not members of the nobility, it's not other members of the royal family particularly, it's friends who really mean a lot to them and who can be relatable for their children growing up.
After George's christening, it was decided to keep him out of the spotlight, until at 9 months old he embarked on his first overseas royal tour.
We hadn't seen very much of George because deliberately the couple decided that he should have as normal an upbringing as he possibly could, and that first year was kept almost under wraps. There were a couple of photographs of him, but not many, and it was all very, very controlled.
Prince George's first overseas royal wave to those of this faraway British realm.
Although the Queen and Prince Philip routinely travelled overseas without their young children, it was Prince William's parents who first broke with that tradition.
The thinking at that time was that the princess should have left her son behind, but she absolutely refused, and she made it clear that if she was going to go on this tour, then so too was William.
More than 100 reporters and cameramen flew from all over the world to see the public debut of 9-month-old Prince William, second in line to the throne.
Charles and Diana wanted to do things differently, and, you know, William and Kate took that, I suppose, as a blueprint.
And it worked brilliantly for them, because it not only did it give the royal couple a chance to have some family time with their son, but it also introduced the Commonwealth to William, part of the world where he was going to be a future king. And identically, the same thought processes were made with George.
But the big difference with this tour was a growing anti-monarchy sentiment in Australia and New Zealand.
The tour to Australia and New Zealand was so important for the monarchy, for William and Kate, and for the countries themselves, I think, because there'd been some talk in Australia especially of a move towards republicanism.
There was so much excitement, you know, bringing a royal baby with the royal couple just put it into a different stratosphere.
And he did what 9-month-old babies do. He just wowed the crowds.
Easter Sunday became Prince George's Day in Sydney. 2 young parents took their baby son to the zoo, and royal watchers everywhere oohed and ahed.
And of course then we got to see, you know, just how much in that first year he'd grown, and what a bright little button he was.
It also allowed them to introduce their son to a huge part of the world which will have a huge significance for the future.
If we're good at anything in the UK, it's projecting this soft power. We may not be the industrial nation we once were, but we've got this royal family and we know how to use it. And if you use it sparingly, and if you do it gently and kindly to George himself, and you don't overexpose him, I think those sorts of moments are so special.
There was Prince George mania, and I think in many ways sort of taking their little baby on that tour, you know, stopped any sense of republicanism absolutely in its tracks. So yeah, Prince George was dubbed the Republican Slayer for very good reason.
Despite the worldwide appeal of Prince George, his parents have continued to limit his public appearances, and it's where we see the royal traditions they're embracing.
We don't see him at a lot of public events, and I think that's obviously very deliberate by William and Catherine to ease him into it more.
If you look at the sorts of events that George has been seen at most recently, they're the big ceremonial events. So it's extraordinary that any 11-year-old or 5 or 6-year-old is going to these events anyway, but that's the nature of being a prince of the British royal family. I think what George is being taught very early on is that every member of the royal family has their place. And it doesn't matter if you're 10 or 11 years old or 70 years old, there is going to be a place for you. And as the heir to the throne, he's got a very special place as well. We're not doing the one-on-ones at the moment. We're not doing the handshakes with individuals. And I sort of get that, because if there are thousands of people involved in something and you are just one part of it, then your role is important, but it's not as important as if you're one-on-one.
This careful management of when George is seen in public means he's growing up in a much more controlled environment than his father.
I think William is giving his children the privacy that Diana craved and couldn't give them. You see the pictures from the 80s of William and Harry turning up to prep school, and it's dozens and dozens of photographers and shouting. And
I think he and Kate are very keen to make sure that their own children don't grow up in the same sort of environment, because it's desperately hard for a youngster to turn up on his first day of school and find that there's a huge group of photographers and journalists.
William was very clear history was not going to repeat itself with his children. So, yes, there were photographers outside the school when George turned up, but all they really got was a picture of a Range Rover driving in. There was one photographer, one TV camera inside, getting the shot of them walking up, meeting the head teacher, going in, and then that's it.
Looking rather nervous, Prince George managed a handshake with one of his teachers, who stepped in with some polite small talk, probably to help reassure Dad.
William and Kate want to ensure their children can grow up privately before they have to become public figures. So they relocated from London to Windsor.
I think it was all very apparent that, as grand and wonderful as Kensington Palace is with its 21 rooms, it was not where they wanted to be as a family.
Almost every time that Kate and William went out, especially with George, we would get a call from the police to say, we definitely saw someone in the bushes at the end of the palace gardens, and they had a long lens, and sure enough, we'd see those photographs. Not in British newspapers, but often in American magazines or on the internet.
They felt very overlooked. They felt very much like they were in a goldfish bowl, right there in the middle of Kensington Park.
The move to a new home in Windsor brought another advantage: the chance to build a family life free from the formality of household staff.
It was a pretty bold move. It was certainly a downsize to a very small 4-bedroom cottage where there wasn't space for a live-in nanny.
They don't have hundreds of staff running around. When William and Harry were growing up, there were liveried flunkies everywhere. Charles surrounded himself with domestic staff.
I think people will be struck by how regular and ordinary their life is as a family.
I know they both do the school runs when they can. They attend sports days, they attend theatre productions.
You know, you've got both of them on a school WhatsApp group. So far, no messages have ever been leaked. You know, I think they're very well protected by their school community and by the locals.
So they have put the children above royal duty, which in the past is something which royals have not done.
But it was definitely a downsize for the family, but they were willing to compromise on space so that they had that freedom, which they really love, and they are very, very happy at Adelaide Cottage.
And as the family grow together, we see the influence of George's younger siblings.
I think he rather depends on Charlotte, and certainly did in the early days when it came to their public engagements and walkabouts.
It's almost like the Three Musketeers, you know, they have got such a unique life, like no one else.
I mean, they're all little characters, obviously, and we're trying to work out who's the boss. I think it's Charlotte.
Prince George, a boy who is destined to be king. And ensuring that there is at least one spare for the heir. Less than 2 years after his birth, the Duchess of Cambridge was back on the steps of the Lindo wing. This time with Princess Charlotte.
I think there was a lot of excitement about Charlotte's birth when she arrived because it was the first girl. And I think there was obviously a lot of talk about the fact that Charlotte was always going to be the spare to George, because the law had changed.
In a break from centuries of tradition, Princess Charlotte will keep her place in the line of succession. A 2013 law ended male preference primogeniture. Birth order now replaces gender for those born after 2011. So when Louis arrived, Charlotte kept her place in line to the throne.
So unlike Princess Anne, who found herself bumped down the line of succession with the arrival of Andrew and then later Prince Edward, Charlotte firmly remains George's understudy, if you like, unless and until George has his own family.
But while a sibling may be viewed as a necessary plan B in royal circles, Prince George's parents are determined that his siblings will never be seen as mere spares.
The heir and the spare thing obviously is funny, but it's a little bit cruel as well. And, you know, yes, Charlotte and Louis are spares, as it were. Like Harry, he obviously resents the heir and the spare thing, and Diana definitely tried to protect him from that.
I remember how Diana, for example, complained to the Queen Mother that whenever they went to see the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth, would always put Prince William next to her because he was the important one. And she had to go to her and say, "Grandmama, please, can you show the same to Harry?" I suspect it was rather difficult with someone like the Queen Mother to change her ways.
When you look at the sibling dynamic, of course, one of three, Prince George being the eldest, he seems incredibly close to his siblings.
William always was impressed by how close Kate was to her sister Pippa and brother James, and he has nurtured that kind of family intimacy between all three of their own children. How they do that in royal children is always a bit of a mystery, but certainly Diana had a go at it herself. She wanted to ensure that the spotlight between William and Harry when they were growing up was shared, and I am told that that's exactly what William and Kate are doing with their three. And George may already know that he eventually is going to be different, but in these early years, they want to bring them up very equally, shared responsibilities and sharing everything, and no one being chosen for any other special reason.
For the eldest, whether it's Charles or William or George, obviously there's more pressure. Not being put on them by other people, but as they grow up and as they mature and they realise the destiny.
George clearly, I think, has a sense of what his destiny is. But I think there is, a sense of both George's character, but also his upbringing, the fact that he's now aware that, he is the king in waiting.
And perhaps because of this burden of destiny, George has come to rely on his younger sister, Charlotte.
I think he rather depends on Charlotte, and certainly did in the early days when it came to their public engagements and walkabouts, when George could seem, I think, compared to his sister, quite shy.
Well, I think the relationship with Charlotte seems to be very charming, because she tells him what to do.
I think we very much saw that when they did their first Trooping the Colour, and you had all three children in that carriage. It was very much Charlotte sort of keeping Louis in check, making sure George was okay.
We do see Charlotte keeping an eye on both of her brothers. What I found really fascinating isn't so much the fact that she's doing that, but for me it's the way that when she does nudge them and tap them, they both fall into line. Children of that age, normally if a younger sibling says, "Put your arms down, who do you think you are?" But they absolutely take it, and I think that's going to be very important when it comes to the dynamic, because they will see that as a form of support.
And in the family dynamic, youngest Louis has a different way of supporting the future king.
Louis is a cheeky chappy. He's adorable. We look at footage of him, especially at the Platinum Jubilee concert, and he is clearly a bit bored. He's looking around. He's being a bit naughty. And everyone loves him.
Meanwhile, Louis the clown, but he's of the clowning age.
And it's on the grand state occasions that Charlotte and Louis's presence can have the biggest impact on George.
I think in terms of the relationship, it probably would compare a little bit to Anne and Charles, where Anne was always the more confident sibling. And I think Charlotte, to a certain extent, she seems to absolutely get protocol. She knows what needs to be done, because I don't think either of them have got hugely strong attention spans. They'll be watching the planes or talking about something. So I think that helps them relax a little bit, because they know that if they are doing anything wrong, they've got their sister there who's usually in the middle of them. So in a way, I think it's probably she goes out being the keeper of the choreography, so they don't have to. But at the same time, they know if they do anything wrong, she will be there to correct them.
It's almost like the Three Musketeers, they have got such a unique life, like no one else, that the people that they can really talk about it to are each other. So I think there is that enormous bond and closeness to the three children, and I think that will really help them going forward when they do more and more public events in the public eye.
I mean, they're all little characters, obviously, and we're trying to, from the little bits we see of them, we're trying to work out who's the boss. I think it's Charlotte.
There's one type of event where we're increasingly seeing George without his siblings, watching the beautiful game.
Obviously, one of the most important things a father can do is pass on his football allegiance. So William's a big Aston Villa fan. George definitely goes to Villa games, but William says he's not forcing Villa onto his son. His dad's president of the FA, so he can pretty much, he's got a golden ticket wherever he wants to go,
including getting a seat at a Champions League quarter-final to watch Aston Villa in Paris, when Prince William gave an insightful interview revealing how important it is to him to pass his passion on to George.
Is it a bit of a lad's tour, this one? Well, I've got my son here as well, so I'm on best behaviour as well. But I thought, it's been 43 years since anything like this has happened in my generation as a Villa fan, and I want George to experience a night out away from home in a big European competition. I hope it's not 43 years since the next time it happens, but I think those memories are really important to create, and bringing him along tonight is a big deal for me.
And it's at football matches that we learn more than just which team Prince George is supporting.
I think we can see George mirroring his father's body language and his dress all the time. But the time that it becomes most apparent is when they actually lose their inhibitions, which is very rare for William, but becoming more frequent because he's such a football fan and such a sports fan. So we see the father leaping up and the son's leaping up in exactly the same way. They turn to one another, That's something where he's not taking the cue from his father anymore. It's something that's ingrained in him, that he automatically will mirror. Normally, they're a little bit reserved, but when they let rip, they look like peas in a pod. I think William is very cleverly showing George the benefits of being king. And there's loads of benefits, things like getting the best seat at rugby matches, going to football cup finals and standing there and just really enjoying it with everybody else.
Including getting one of the hottest tickets in town, a moment expertly snapped by Taylor Swift herself, managing to find an angle to capture not one, but two future monarchs.
What could be better? You could see them doing that selfie with Taylor Swift, and George absolutely excited and loving it, and hopefully William just said in his ear, this wouldn't normally happen to normal children. There's something about being royal that's maybe given us a little intro to that. And the wonderful thing about William is he's more than happy to become the child again, playing around, posing. So you can still be very much a child and be a royal at the same time, and even wear a crown and still retain that. You don't have to give everything up.
And what does the royal wardrobe tell us about the king he may become?
We will look back in years to come when George is on the throne of his first appearances as a little prince. So what he's wearing is important.
When we see the kids out in public, they are very carefully dressed, and these are very conscious fashion statements that Kate and William are making.
I don't want the royal children to look like they're in some period drama or some kind of BBC kind of reenactment. That's not what they need to look like.
As second in line to the throne, Prince George has a special relationship with King Charles, or as he calls him, Grandpa Wales.
Prince George has a very close relationship with his grandfather, the king, and some of that time is one-to-one time. It's Charles's way of instilling a love and a passion and a sense of duty for what's going to come to George one day.
I think the relationship between Charles and George now is so sweet, because I think those observing them together notice that it is very much grandpa and grandson. So it is about love and then duty.
William and Kate do follow some royal traditions. They move, as the royal households do, sort of seasonally from various properties. So in the summer, they do go up to Balmoral when the king spends a long time up there. Those are moments which Charles particularly treasures, because they are intimate. Charles wants to instill his love for the natural environment in his grandson, and to that end, when George was born, he decided to clear an area on the Balmoral estate to plant a wood.
Charles gave a rare interview at his Scottish home, revealing a touching tribute to his first grandchild and his hands-on approach to managing his land.
This was a rather empty field, but the farm didn't need anything, so I thought, And the great thing was I managed to plant it the same year that my grandson was born, the eldest, George. So I thought I'd call it Prince George's
This is Prince George's word?
Basically, yes.
This family is definitely a tree-planting family. They've planted trees all over the world, and Charles obviously is very, very keen on this. And George, wherever he goes on his tours in years to come, he'll find Prince George trees that his family have been planting.
And Prince George is also very aware of the grandparent that he wasn't able to meet, Princess Diana.
It's obviously very important to William that his children grow up knowing exactly who his mother was and the incredible things that she did as Princess of Wales.
Granny Diana, a granny they of course never knew, but whose influence is clearly all-pervasive still. I'm told that William has lots of photographs of his mother, of him with his mother as a child as well, all around. And they've told George, Charlotte and Louis a great deal about Princess Diana.
There was a lovely moment when the children on Mother's Day actually wrote letters for the grandmother that they never met. And of course, you know, it's very important to William that he keeps his mother's memory alive.
If Diana were here, she would definitely be competing alongside Carol Middleton to being #1 granny. She would be a fantastic grandmother. She was a brilliant mother with those children, with William and Harry, and I think, knowing her as I did, she would have been a fantastic granny too.
Catherine never got to meet the Princess of Wales, but she was the most photographed woman in the world, one of the most famous women on the planet, and William's mother.
And her influence was very strong because she sat William and Harry down and she said, boys, not everybody lives in 2 homes, drives a Range Rover and gets to do all the things that you do. And this was the first time that anyone so publicly had done that with their children.
And like Princess Diana before her, Kate has taken her children to do charity work. Here they can be seen enjoying helping out at a baby bank providing Christmas presents.
Yeah, pop that in. Right, I think you're done. Good.
You can see how rewarding that sort of work is, isn't it? Knowing that you're helping out others.
Kate has been I suppose, following in Diana's footsteps in making sure that those children don't just see the privileged side of their lives.
But Prince George is fortunate to have both grandparents on his mum's side, and the Middletons have continued to be a big part of the young royals' lives.
There's no doubt that Carol and Mike are the #1 grandpa and granny in George and his brother and sister's lives. They're the grandparents they see the most of, and they're the ones who do a lot of the babysitting when William and Kate can't be there.
In terms of contact time, as we would say in modern terms, the Middletons have had masses of contact time with their grandchildren, and obviously Charles is away more because of his job, so he doesn't see them as much as Carol and Michael do. These children are in the House of Windsor, but they're also in the House of Middleton.
There's a deep tradition of mentors for heirs to the throne, and for Prince George, a key character in his life is fun uncle Mike Tyndall.
Mike Tyndall, Zara Tyndall's husband, he's this big teddy bear of a man, you know, an international rugby player, but born into normality, and has been absolutely embraced by the royal family. And you just see him interacting with George, Charlotte and Louis. And he's fun and he's happy and he sort of pokes fun at them a bit and he teases them. And clearly the three kids absolutely love it. I think everybody needs a Mike Tyndall in their life. I really do.
With Uncle Harry living in California, the untitled Tyndalls are having much more of an impact on Prince George.
William and Harry were really keen that their children had close relationships with each other, that, you know, they'd grow up royal cousins, having all the fun that William and Harry enjoyed when they grew up with their royal cousins. And of course, because of the relationship between Harry and William, that hasn't happened. William's been very lucky actually over here that he's got Zara and Mike Tyndall and their children, Mia, Lena and Lucas, whom their three are incredibly close to, and Edward and Sophie's children as well. Even though there's a bigger age gap, they spend quite a bit of time together. So George, Charlotte and Louis are growing up with a very lovely relationship and interaction with their royal cousins.
But we rarely get to see the young royals playing together, so when they do appear in public, their fashion choices are often scrutinised.
I think we always make the assumption that they're the modern royals, but I think if we look at their dress code and their dress brand, we've got extremely traditional children.
Well, there is a bit of a uniform for royal children when they're in their public role. So if they're going to be on the Buckingham Palace balcony and trooping the colour, you don't want them, you know, wearing little jogging pants and a T-shirt. You want them to be nicely dressed.
When we see the kids out in public, they are very carefully dressed. Usually Charlotte is a miniature version of Kate, and George looks very smart, wearing a blazer and tie just like his dad on numerous occasions. And these are very conscious fashion statements that Kate and William are making.
And they've turned to designers frequently in the past, like Rachel Riley, who really specialises in that sort of heritage couture for children.
We've dressed Prince George on many of his public occasions. I don't want the royal children to look like they're in some period drama or some kind of BBC kind of reenactment. That's not what they need to look like. I think the style that has been chosen for Prince George is very important for many reasons, but firstly because he is the future monarch, so he needs to look like the king that he will become. I think that it's very important for him to have the tradition of what has been before, but at the same time he has to be relevant for today and he has to look like a modern prince. Traditional clothing has become a trend and it was definitely put on the map by Prince William and Princess Catherine dressing their children in a certain way. There is what they've called the Prince George effect. Whenever any of the royal children have been seen in public wearing our items, there is definitely a spike in sales. He was wearing this sailboat smock dungarees on his first official engagement. It was a play date on the official tour when they went to Australia and New Zealand. And it's a really fun outfit for that age group because he was just a little bit less than a year old. Some of the outfits have been sent over to the palace. What was really exciting, though, is that we didn't know beforehand that he was going to be wearing that specific item. It made me feel so proud when I saw him wearing it, that one of the items that we had designed and made was now, it was part of history.
They're not just photographs, they become historical artefacts. You know, we will look back in years to come when George is on the throne of his first appearances as a little prince. And so what he's wearing is important.
We've also had a rare glimpse of what the royal children wear away from official duties.
We know from Kate's film and pictures that she has released of the children that they do wear the kind of clothes that the majority of young kids wear as well.
We've seen them often in bare feet, and we see them in shorts and T-shirts when they're running around the beaches of Norfolk. So they're having that sort of wonderful combination of a free and very natural and organic childhood in terms of what they're able to wear, and obviously really needing to dress up when the occasion requires it. And I think they're aware that this sort of wonderful combination of the middle-class Middletons and the royal family has yielded a very balanced, grounded family in themselves, and that really goes down well with the public. You know, there needs to be a connectability, they need to be relatable.
We've seen Prince George at his most relaxed in candid photographs captured by his mother, the Princess of Wales.
So what Kate does now is she takes photographs of her children herself, partly because she's a very good photographer. She learnt photography, she studied photography, and it's partly because she can get a very charming photographs of her own children.
If we could just release a little of the pressure by putting a couple of photographs out of George or the couple or the family, then that just diluted the market for those paparazzi pictures. And it didn't mean that the paparazzi went away, because the paparazzi never went away. But suddenly, instead of those pictures being worth £1,000 a pop, they were worth 10 quid a pop. So people would be less likely to do it. They wanted to regain control of their own image, I suppose, and their own narrative. And I understood that. But another reason they did it was to just puncture this market for these paparazzi photographs.
We have access to those photos once they've been published on Instagram or X or whatever. But they're not released to the media beforehand, much as we would like them to be released, and the newspapers would like them to be released. That the palace has control over when they release those images.
We've moved on as much as the family have. We understand that it's not acceptable anymore to have people hiding in bushes, to have paparazzi running down the street, to have your every move photographed by people that you've never even met and don't even know. And I think the decision to take control of the media landscape as best they can, most people, most members of the public, get it. They understand.
As the Prince and Princess of Wales now, they can go directly to the consumer, they can go directly to royal fans.
And what challenges will Prince George face with his next major move?
William and Catherine have been seen visiting a number of schools.
No future king or queen has gone to a co-ed school.
There will be concern about fellow pupils recording, documenting issues on social media and then releasing it.
Prince George is destined to be king, but he's still only partway through his education. The next big decision for the Prince and Princess of Wales is which school he should attend.
You only have to go back a few generations. The royals didn't go to school at all.
Late Queen wasn't educated in a school. She was home tutored, and yet her son, Prince Charles, went to Gordonston. The royal family is progressive.
At the age of 13, Prince Charles was sent to Gordonston, an exclusive boys' boarding school in northeast Scotland.
Charles had a miserable time at Gordonston. And it's well known, he's spoken about how, he resented Prince Philip sending him there, to toughen him up. So I do not think William and Kate are going to be repeating what is considered a mistake in the royal family by sending George to Gordonston.
I think most people assumed that he'd follow in his father's footsteps at the age of 13 and go to Eton.
There are positives and negatives for Eton. A positive, of course, is that it's extremely close to where they live in Windsor. It's tried and tested. It has educated the sons of monarchs over many, many years. And William too enjoyed it. But it also, the downside, it's seen as very elitist.
I think while they're considering their children's education, perspective, how this is viewed by the rest of the world, particularly by British taxpayers who fund the royal family, those decisions are increasingly important. Perhaps there's an argument for George not to go to Eton because to many that is just seen as totally unrelatable.
Well, we imagine there's a bit of a tussle going on here between mum and dad because Catherine went to a co-ed school, Marlborough, very posh, but co-ed. Whereas William, of course, went to Eton, which is right next door to Windsor Castle.
At Eton, where William did allow this filming, he'll go into the sixth form from the autumn, with everyone aware that interest in him and the pressures that'll bring can only grow.
William and Catherine have been seen visiting a number of schools. They've been seen visiting Marlborough, which is Kate's format school, which is, of course, co-educational. And the princess is apparently very keen that the children who are close, who have that very tight bond, can be educated together.
No future king or queen has gone to a co-ed school. And that would mean that George, Charlotte and Louis could still be together in secondary school.
It is well documented that the princess had an absolute ball in Marlborough. She was quite unhappy in her previous school, and yet Marlborough College gave her this massive lease of life.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction, and of course that will mean I'll get it wrong, but I'm going to say Mum's going to win. Marlborough, co-ed, keep the kids together.
But if George does create history by attending a co-ed secondary school, it may have other consequences for the future king.
George, at some stage, if he's at a mixed school, is bound to kiss a girl. Will that picture end up on social media? What will it mean? How will they handle things like that? I was the first to snog Prince George. You can see all those sort of headlines looming in the not-too-distant future.
Social media can be a wonderful thing and a force for good, but it can also have an absolutely negative effect for many children, not just if you're born into a member of the royal family. So I think there will be concern about fellow pupils recording, documenting issues on social media and then releasing it. So I think the parameters will have to be set very, very clearly going forward with the school about what can be said and what not can be said by fellow pupils.
And it's really important, I think, that for the next 6 or 7 years while he's at school, we give him the space and the privacy to be a young kid. He has to be allowed to make a lot of the mistakes that the rest of us make in private, because by the time he gets to 23, 24, 25, we're going to be seeing a lot more of him. So I think it's really important that he's given the same degree of latitude to do his own thing that William and Harry were before, frankly, he's thrown out onto the public stage and told, that's your next 40 years.
And when Prince George has completed his education, the armed forces will beckon.
Well, the royal family, fundamentally, is a military family, and it has been for hundreds of years. That's how they got where they are. So I'd be amazed if George doesn't go into the military, and he's got the pick, hasn't he?
The sovereign is commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and there's a rich tradition of heirs to the throne seeing service.
His father served in the military in the Royal Air Force. His grandfather was a Royal Naval officer.
People join the military in this country and they say an oath to the monarch. They don't say it to the Prime Minister or the government. You serve your king and country or your queen and country. And it's always been seen as a jolly good idea that if you're a future monarch, you should have some experience, particularly if you're a prince, you should have some experience of the armed forces.
Those royal kids. They're brought up surrounded by soldiers, surrounded by military, and the tradition, the royals and the military, I think they're always in, you know, carriages. They see trooping the colour. They see how the army works, the air force, the navy works.
William, having done his experience of the military, then decided to become a helicopter pilot. That was the most fulfilling period of his life. It gave him a degree of autonomy and independence that he can't enjoy as a sort of working royal.
They're more anonymous in the forces, which is why for centuries royals have been in the armed forces.
When Prince William becomes king, as heir apparent, his son Prince George will be the new Prince of Wales. A role without a fixed start or end date.
There's no job spec to being heir to the throne. Charles, you know, broke all records because his mother broke all records.
He'll want to make a legacy. He'll want to be remembered for his time as Prince of Wales.
George, I'm sure there'll be some charitable cause that he really wants to get involved with. Earthshot, the environmental prize, may well be William's legacy.
Everyone wants some hope and wants some optimism, and I think the Earthshot encompasses urgent optimism. That's what we're here for.
And George will have to find his niche somewhere in there.
As well as considering how to spend his time as heir apparent, Prince George will also be under pressure to decide who to share his throne with.
Well, of course, it's some way off before Prince George is going to have a serious girlfriend, but Prince William has been through all of that. He will absolutely know full well the pressure, that anticipation that's going to come when Prince George starts dating, you know, his first girlfriend, whoever he steps out with. There's always going to be that speculation, is this going to be a future royal bride? I
suspect there will be huge interest in the girls that George dates and the bride that he chooses to marry. I mean, it is part of the territory.
The level of interest in George's relationships obviously is going to be massive. He'll have protection while he's at university or he's in the military. Obviously they will want to protect whoever it is as much as they can, but there's a limit to what they can do when that person is on the outside. Once they're on the inside and they're behind the palace railings, it's a lot more straightforward. But when they're a private individual, it's more difficult.
I think sometimes there's more pressure from the media and the public than there is from the actual family for him to find his right partner. But, you know, we're in 2025 now. Who knows what that right partner will be? It might not be a Princess of Wales, it might be a Prince of Wales. Who knows?
And as Prince George embarks on a new chapter, he also has to deal with the unexpected.
It's a major growing up moment for somebody, you know, the age of George.
But the fear that William had was that as his father was also diagnosed with cancer, you know, that he suddenly might be propelled into the top job. And then what about George?
Prince George, a future king and monarch in the making. And as George grows up, he and his siblings will be finding their place within King Charles's new monarchy. A royal family shaped by change.
Well, we talk about a slimmed-down monarchy now because we see, you know, King Charles leading a very different-looking royal family to that of the late Queen.
You've got Harry and Meghan stepping back from royal duties. You've got Prince Andrew being forced to step back from royal duties. They're actually the top team of the royal family now is not big at all.
After the remarkable 70-year reign of his mother, Queen Elizabeth, it's little surprise that King Charles is intent on putting his own stamp on the institution.
When Charles was crowned king, he came to the throne having been the longest-serving Prince of Wales in history. He was always going to be, to a degree, a king in a relative hurry.
What you see with Charles now is authentic Charles. He's less formal than his mother. He was doing CPR on a dummy the other day, things his mum wouldn't have done.
Saying it had been so long since he'd done CPR, he needed a refresher. But it turns out
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
he's the compression king.
12, 13, 14.
Charles has watched his mother do it. William and George will be watching, Charles do it. And they'll all have their little version of it. The monarchy has always evolved. It always has to change.
If they're seen to be too distant, people will start asking, who are they and what are they for again? At the same time, if they become too much like us, we'll ask, well, hang on a minute, aren't they just like social media stars? Aren't they just reality TV stars?
The number of working royals has diminished naturally, but Charles's vision to reduce the numbers further might be to the advantage of George and his siblings.
If William is to continue with his father's notion of scaling back on the size of the royal family, it might give his children a degree of flexibility about how they choose to spend their lives.
Maybe that will be possible for Charlotte and Louis when they're in their 20s and 30s. But then when their brother becomes king, they'll be expected to support him a lot more.
When you look at royal children today, Sarah Phillips and Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, who have independent lives of the royal family, successful commercial careers, there is every chance, certainly, that Louis will be able to go down that route, possibly so to Charlotte, and maybe even Prince George.
I thought with Harry, there was a chance of doing 6 months of royal duties and 6 months of his own thing.
Clearly, the pitfalls of being a working member of the royal family and still having a commercial enterprise is the conflict between the two.
The late Queen and Charles and William said you're going to be accused of cashing in. You're either in or you're out. But I think that will soften over the years.
When his moment to take the throne arrives, George can be certain of one thing. A sibling who stood by him since childhood will remain a constant source of strength and guidance.
I see George and Charlotte kind of doing it together.
It's been widely speculated that in the future Charlotte will inherit Princess Anne's title as Princess Royal, which seems entirely appropriate.
When George is king, his monarchy will have to strike a balance, honouring centuries of tradition on one hand, while meeting the shifting expectations of a modern public on the other.
He'll have to work out exactly what the British people want. Do we want a much more modern monarchy? Do we keep all the pomp and circumstance? King Charles has forged his own path. And if you think about the way that William has forged his path, they've all done things slightly differently. And I've no doubt that George will do things his way, but it'll be a very different monarchy in 20 or 30 years.
And in the short term, Prince George has had to grapple with the heartbreaking reality that both his mother and grandfather have been diagnosed with cancer.
The defining moment of William's life and Harry's life is the death of their mother in 1997. Now, George hasn't had to go through that.
When Kate received her cancer diagnosis, William said it was absolutely dreadful, the worst year he's ever had, because he had to work out how to tell the children.
It's a major growing up moment for somebody, the age of George.
But the fear that William had was that as his father was also diagnosed with cancer, he suddenly might be propelled into the top job. And then what about George? So it was a very, very difficult year.
In September 2024, Kate shared a heartfelt video announcing the uplifting news that she had completed her chemotherapy treatment. Filmed with warmth and simplicity, at its heart were George and his siblings, happy to share this moment as a family after months of uncertainty.
Is this filming?
Hello? Hello? Although I have finished chemotherapy, my path to healing and full recovery is long. and I must continue to take each day as it comes.
And it was lovely to see, actually, in the video they released all of the children there at their home in Norfolk with their mother.
And while this film offers a rare glimpse of George alongside his Middleton grandparents, it is their quiet constancy that may shape him most profoundly. Not only the boy he is today, but the king he's destined to become.
I would say it is the Middleton influence which has been more significant in how George is being raised as a son and as a future monarch.
Ironically, that sort of middle-class element that Kate has brought into the royal family is, I think, what's going to save the royal family, the House of Windsor, in a world that looks so different to when the late Queen came to the throne in the 50s, to a world that's going to look increasingly different when it's Prince George's time to reign. That middle-class upbringing, that rooting, that anchoring, that focus on family, I think is going to be hugely important.
I think as George grows up, he becomes more and more aware of his destiny.
There is no rule book for learning how to be a king.
With the royal family, it's very much show, don't tell. So he'll be watching and learning from the king, from his parents, and of course the late Queen as well.
George is going to have to do his bit to bring the monarchy into the 21st century. He doesn't know it yet, he's only 11 years old, but a lot of that's going to fall on his shoulders.
We've got the future king of England who has this amazing inheritance and lifetime experience to draw on.
I think what you've seen with the royal family over the last 50 years is a modernisation. The Queen started it, William and Kate have continued it, and there's no doubt that George is going to have to continue down that line. And he's going to have to navigate some pretty choppy waters. You know, the monarchy always has its ups and downs, but it evolves and it modernises.
Prince George has been very lucky in that mentoring has come across the generations. He's incredibly close to his grandfather, the king. He has a very close relationship with his father. So there's no manual as such. It's almost as if duty runs in his DNA.